and welcome to GameSpot presents the HotSpot. It is Wednesday, November 16th. My name is Tom Magrino. It is the third week of November, which means, holy Jesus, we are truly mortified by this embarrassment of riches. Yeah? Kevin Van Ord.
Yeah.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. I've got my voice back.
Yeah?
Much to the dismay of my coworkers.
It's true.
Who probably enjoyed not having to hear so much of my loud mouthery.
You do talk a lot. But this guy who has water in his mouth, Thomas McShay, how are you doing today?
I drink hot chocolate in my mouthful region.
Oh, that's not water. Look who it is. It's Sean McInnes.
Hey, I'm back on the podcast for the first time since the one time I did it.
The one time.
Now I am living the life of luxury because I have my own dedicated camera.
It's true.
And my own lava lamp.
Which is flickering
and
as
also,
if a fire hazard.
This sound maker, which I have promised not to use too much.
Such a jerk. All the time a jerk. So we actually have a very short show for you today because CNET, who apparently is our... I don't even know what they are.
Betters or equals? I'm not even sure anymore.
They
Betters.
pay our bills.
Do they?
I
thought David Letterman did.
Well, I mean, he pays CBS's bills. I don't know who pays CBS Interactive's bills.
I thought David Caruso did. I'm confused.
I thought, Ashton Kutcher did.
Okay, but either way, this is a short show.
So
we should cut to the chase.
There are some chases that we're going to cut to. So I want to briefly set this up. This week is ridiculous, so I'm kind of breaking this out into... Monday, we will have a Zelda exclusive podcast with that guy and our new Games Guide editor, Peter Brown. So expect that on Monday. Next week, we will be covering Need for Speed the Run and Saints Row with Carolyn Pettit. This week, we have Kevin Van Ord to talk to us about Skyrim and Assassin's Creed, and also maybe we'll get something from this guy about Rayman Origins, Sean McInnes.
Hooray.
Everybody loves Rayman.
But...
oh, jeez.
What?
You think that's bad, watchers, listeners, whoever you are? We've been hearing that all week.
It's not even a fine CBS property.
It is.
Oh, is it?
It is.
Oh. I don't know. Its cultural relevance is beyond relevant. So anyway...
What?
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to throw this across the room.
Thank you, because it's not safe in your hands.
A favor to you people out there, just one last... Okay. All right, and I'm done.
There we go. So, we are going to move on. But before we actually get into the particulars of Skyrim and Assassin's Creed, I want to kind of preface this conversation with game length. So, Skyrim is... Okay. How many hours do you think Skyrim is?
Umpteen million.
As many hours as you want it to be?
Yeah.
I mean, because
I think it's like 3 to 5.
3 to 5.
Roughly.
It's like
3 to 5 billion
It's like
hours.
a modern warfare campaign for people with the short attention span.
Okay.
Well, what they've done is they've actually added stuff so that there's always something to do. Even when you've finished all the structured stuff, there's still always stuff to do. There are going to be dragons to slay even once you've finished out all the stuff that you would normally think there is to do.
Right. So
there's always going to be stuff there.
So we've got this super long game. And then we have, by contrast, Assassin's Creed, which is
by
something
contrast,
also
which is
you
still
reviewed,
long.
Which is still long. 25 hours.
25, 30
or
hours.
So.
I mean, again, it depends on how much you do.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a lot to do in Assassin's Creed Revelations. Not a surprise necessarily to anybody that played Brotherhood or Assassin's Creed 2.
And then we're going to just throw in here... Rayman Origins, which Sean reviewed this week, which he told me he has absolutely no idea. I'm going to guesstimate...
I was not timing myself.
Probably about 10 hours. Is that fair?
I mean, that sounds about right.
Okay.
I have no idea. I wasn't timing myself. I just know that, like, at first I was like, you know what? This game could have been a downloadable game. But by the time I finished it, I was like, no, that's totally worth $60.
Yeah. So, kind of the context I'm thinking about this in is, like, when movies first came out, not first came out, but when they invented kind of multi-reel movies, there was this huge variety of how long a movie was supposed to be. So, like, in the Nation days, you'd have 8-9 hour movies, 5-hour movies, 30-minute movies. And now, 100 years later, we're down to about 2 hours a movie. Do you think there's any kind of correlation here? Like, do you think that as far as like an ideal game length goes, we're still trying to figure that out? Or if this is still in flux?
It depends on what your definition of value is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've never thought of value as just purely a dollar spent per hours received from your product. I think its value is more complex than that.
Mm-hmm.
I also think one of the advantages that games have over movies is that there's so much more what you make of them. So you can play like the 2-minute burst iPhone games, or you can sit down and dedicate like an 8-hour marathon to Skyrim.
Yeah.
There's just so much more flexibility there than there are in like when you go and sit down in a theater to watch a Hollywood produced movie. And I think that's sort of like, so I guess there's not really a correlation there, but it is something that we can brag about.
Yeah,
being video game fans, right?
Ours is giant and theirs is small.
Right.
So,
Well, the big thing is just keeping it interesting and good the whole time. Like the one game this year that was too long for me was Lost in Shadows, which was like a really awesome 15-hour game that lasted 25 hours. So it's like Skyrim. It's worth playing because it's so there's so much stuff to do that you can play for a million hours. Rayman is a little tighter because there's it's not as diverse. It has to fit with what the game is.
yeah, but like finding what that game is, as far as did Assassin's Creed or does Skyrim need to be that long? Would you rather have a shorter game that's, say, in Skyrim's instance, less janky?
I don't know.
Whoa.
I think
We take strong stances in this podcast.
but,
Wild opinions.
In the end, no, I don't think that there's. I think that the trade-off is fine in Skyrim. I mean, I wouldn't have said that this game is superb if I felt that it wasn't erring on the side of wonderful. And I think there's room for all that stuff. I mean, this comes back to like that shooter of the year discussion we had. When it was like we talked a lot about Halo Reach versus Vanquish, and it reminds me of that all over again, which is like is value just the. I don't know. Like I
the raw amount of content.
Yeah, it's not just the raw amount of content. Sometimes it's about like how awesome this is in its own terms, and sometimes something is really good, but you only want to play it once, and that's fine. And that might be worth the money. And sometimes something might be shorter, but it might encourage you to play it over and over again. I don't know. Sometimes I would rather spend more money on something that's shorter and different than what I've done before, than really, really long, but pretty much the same thing that I've played a bunch of times.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm seeing is as games get really, really long, the entire back half just seems like it could be lopped off. Like with Assassin's Creed in particular, it seems like that game doesn't need to be 25 hours long.
I disagree.
Because you're doing the exact same things over and over.
I disagree with that. I think every game determines what its arc is. I think every game has its own pace and establishes that early enough along where you get an idea of how things can be spread across what its arc is going to be, whether you call it the narrative arc or the gameplay arc. And I think Assassin's Creed, I think the series in general does a really brilliant job of making its narrative arc interesting in the way that it should be from beginning to end. And also matching that with a gameplay arc that goes along in a very similar way, where when the story is intense, so is the gameplay. And so on and so forth. And I think it's the right amount of structured content versus freeform content. I think that series does that exceptionally well.
I guess from my viewpoint in games like Assassin's Creed and GTA 4, I always find them a little too long because I only really enjoy the core story aspect, the missions. And that stuff stretching on for 20 hours is not enough diversity in the gameplay. So I wish it was cut down. For open world stuff, I mean, stuff like Oblivion or Fallout, I really like because it's really diverse to different quests, whereas this main story is second, I guess.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think Brotherhood sort of addressed that in a lot of ways, and that continues on from Revelations, where you've got these central things, and some of them aren't even really main story quests, but you do have central set piece sort of events that punctuate a lot of the freeform stuff. And when you do some of these optional things in Assassin's Creed, what they do is in Revelations in particular is what they do is they establish character. And I think it's really important in games that, because they don't often do it well, is to build out their characters. And one of the things I like about Revelations is, that you now get your Brotherhood members, and now when one levels up enough, you can assign them to a stronghold, and then you get a new quest. And these are like two-part kind of quests where your protege sort of fails the first time and succeeds the next time. And I really like how that sets up Ezio as a mentor. And again, that's optional, but I think that not only does that add to the narrative and add to the gameplay, but I like other parts of the game too, where there's enough going on now where some things are interesting in terms of stealth, some things are much more linear, kind of, smoothly flowing parkour things. And other stuff is exactly what you make of them, and you get enough freedom to sort of play how you want.
So
I don't know.
Is that
really
something that you can only have with a 25-hour game? Like, could you not have that stuff if the game only lasted 12 hours?
You could have it, but some of it might seem more abrupt, or some of it might not get, some of it might not be elaborated in ways that make sense. I mean, I in the end, I do think that some of Revelations is padding. I absolutely do not like the tower defense. Not just because it doesn't belong, but because it just isn't fun on its own terms. But I also don't like the Desmond first-person platforming sections. I suspect that there will be wide differences of opinion in those particular sections. I think that the tower defense will be probably universally disliked, and I think that the Desmond sections will be a love it or hate it sort of thing. But I don't know. Like, I don't agree that Assassin's Creed would somehow have been better had it been shorter. Perhaps Assassin's Creed 1. I don't know if I agree with that with the subsequent games.
Yeah, I mean, with the Assassin's Creed in particular, it seems like, with the original Assassin's Creed, it was you gave like a 9 or something. Is that right?
I thought that there was nothing like it.
Yeah. And then subsequent installments seem to be just going down and down and down. 8 point. No, that's not true.
No. I mean, I think that's the danger in comparing a score now to a score then. Is that there's this kind of idea that something that gets a 9 now is exactly as good as something that got a 9 5 years ago, which just isn't true.
I may have said that wrong. It's the reason why it's not maintaining that 9 quality is because it's just rehashing, I guess. It's not bringing new innovation.
Disagree. I mean, Assassin's Creed 2 was much, much better than Assassin's Creed 1. This is the first time. I think Brotherhood was ultimately not as good as Assassin's Creed 2, but it also added a whole bunch of stuff that was truly interesting and unique. And it wasn't just a game that was, I used to say this a lot, but it just wasn't pooped out by Ubisoft. There was a lot of care taken, with Brotherhood that we didn't kind of expect.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, like I think you kind of expected, this is like, it's just been a year. This isn't going to be as good as Assassin's Creed 2. And I mean, I would say that Assassin's Creed 2 is ultimately the more impactful game in the way that I think, like Tom might say, BioShock 1 is more impactful than BioShock 2 by nature of the setting and of the characters.
No, BioShock 2 has that really awesome multiplayer mode. So it had bigger impact. You see any imitators?
Shush.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, I think games establish themselves as what they are. And then you have cases where, like, Castlevania Lords of Shadow, like, just drones on and on and on because it doesn't give you enough to do. But I would disagree that Assassin's Creed generally doesn't give you enough to do. In fact, I would say that Revelation's biggest problem is it gives you too much to do that's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, and then I guess I'm kind of looking at this from the perspective of economics as well. In the case of, say, Skyrim, like there were, 60, or we'll just say that game's 100 hours long. Does that seem fair?
It's more than that.
Okay.
Many.
For the metric way of simplifying things, we'll say it's 100 hours long. It seems like they could have delivered, and it took about, 5 or 6 years between...
Yeah, but they started full bore 3 years ago after Fallout 3 shipped.
Fallout 3.
There was only half bore before then. Quarter bore?
Quarter bore?
Quarter bore.
Quarter bore. So if... I'm just kind of curious, like, if they would have made that game shorter, and instead of putting out one game every 6 years, they would have put out 2, let's say 40-hour games every 2 years. What are you losing by making those games shorter, and what are companies gaining? I can tell you what companies are gaining, and that's more economic viability. And when you have more economic viability, it's not so much a risk, risky hit-driven business.
I don't understand how development works. I mean, I just, when I think about this game, it's like a lot, like the artists are doing something and people are creating quests and other people are working on the combat. Like a lot of people are doing a lot of different things because that's kind of what you need.
That's a lot of mouths to feed.
If you cut it down to 40 hours and by doing that, you make it like a world that has this like boring artistic design that repeats itself over and over again, like a certain BioWare RPG. People are going to be really annoyed by that because they want the diversity of the world. Right. So yeah, I think that you need to take 3 years to flesh out a world to explore in something like Skyrim.
And I mean, the reason that this game is so popular, I feel like, is that it's attracted such a dedicated fan base because it is a series that doesn't really have any equals in terms of what they do. These just massive open world role-playing games where there's just so much to see and collect and explore. I mean, obviously there are other open-world RPGs out there, but none that are quite as just granular as this game in terms of what you can do anywhere in this world.
That's a true thing.
And so
I'm
so
not
I
arguing.
think that's a big part of the success. And if they were to sort of scale the game down and do just a tight narrative, because I think when you talk about shortening Skyrim, you're also talking about contracting the size of the world.
Definitely.
Because there's a correlation between the length of the game and the size of this world, just the amount of distraction that the game offers. And so I think contracting the game, making it just sort of like a linear RPG story, which is basically what the main storyline is in this game, then suddenly you become a lot more like every other RPG out there, all these other Western role-playing games, and then suddenly they don't have their niche anymore. They lose the dedication of their fan base, which is why you see just like every other post on Reddit right now is Skyrim related, because they have that just excited, zealous fan base. So I honestly don't think that Bethesda could really get away with pumping out, or to use another expression, pooping out an Elder Scrolls game every 2
I don't know if
years.
I'm alone. I don't really want a new Elder Scrolls game that often.
Oh, really?
No.
A 5-year break is nice, because then when you jump into Skyrim, you're like, oh, like it's a whole. If I had to do that like every other year,
Like what you have to do with Assassin's Creed?
There is a lessening of the impact if you do it enough. I absolutely get
that's
it.
every year.
That is every year.
I mean, when GTA 5 comes out, I'm excited. But if GTA 5 came out in 2010, because that would have been 2 years after, I don't want to do that again. Like, 4 years, 5 years, that gives you time to breathe and appreciate it again.
And besides, we've now got the diversity of RPGs. This year has proven that now we have this incredible diversity of ways of looking at the RPG anyway. Without Bethesda, that would just be one fewer way of looking at the RPG. Because to me, what Bethesda does with Skyrim is very different than, say, what From does with Dark Souls, and what BioWare does with Dragon Age,
Or
and
Monosoft does with Xenoblades.
yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
Or what there was another example. Oh, or what CD Projekt does, or what the guys that make Two Worlds 2 do. Like these are all similar in certain ways, but different enough to feel very distinct from one another. So you can never say, oh gosh, well, The Witcher 2 just feels like a poor man's Skyrim.
No.
Because that's not the scope of the game that they're trying to create. I mean, yes, and these are tighter experiences that have fewer things that you have to make excuses for. Like the thing about Skyrim is, yes, it's so big and it's so diverse and it's so all encompassing that yes, you have to make a lot of excuses for the things that it does wrong, because there is a lot of bullcrap in there that you have to put up with.
I mean, that's like my big complaint with Skyrim. It gives you so much content, and it tries to present this super immersive world that you just feel like you're living in, and then your horse scales a wall at 90 degrees. I mean,
that seems. I mean, because that is just a purely visual problem, basically. I mean, that doesn't really impact anything.
But it does
Really?
in a game.
Scaling. I mean, it feels, because most of the problems are like, oh, I fell into a hole, or oh, that guy's head fell off and is spiraling towards the screen. Like those kind of problems I can overlook. Those like visual glitches, I guess.
Well, in a game that works, I mean, I get what Tom's saying in the sense that in a game that works so hard to immerse you in its world, when suddenly you see a moose over there that looks like it's prancing away in the way you would expect it to, and then suddenly it's walking up a cliff like this, suddenly that takes you out of the experience.
I think that's actually part of the charm, which sounds like I'm an apologist.
That is a one.
I think that's.
I hate that term anyway. Oh, this
it's
stupid thing is part of the charm. And
It's
I
something
sort
you
of
can
get that,
acknowledge as
but-
bad, and then you come into the office next day, or you talk to your friends the next day, and you're like, here's this hilarious thing. Like, we watched a YouTube clip called Ice Bear or something, where someone
funny.
freezes a bear, and the thing just like tumbles down normally, and then all of a sudden it's flying through the air because the physics can't keep up. And it's like, that's funny. That's enjoyable.
It is
like
funny.
This game is ultimately about having a silly good time. And if that happens because a dude's head falls off, that's
I don't know
fine.
if this game is
I don't think that's
ultimately
what that game
about
is
having a silly
well, that's
good
what
time.
I haven't played Skyrim, but
I
Oblivion
feel
for
like-
me,
I
it's
mean,
fun.
you look at sort of like the tone surrounding these these bits of media that people have uploaded of these various Skyrim glitches, and it's a very different tone from what you would see with other games because people forgive this kind of thing in a game like Skyrim because it is so hugely enchanting that when I watch a video of a bear like rolling down a hill like a cannonball and then rocketing into space once he hits a tiny little pebble, yes, I think that's hilarious, but it also really makes me want to go play Skyrim. Because
it's
this
a
game,
strange thing, isn't it?
You know, whereas other games, when I watch, you know, when you watch like that YouTube video of the guy who played that Black Ops level and made it through the whole thing by not shooting anybody until he absolutely had to because of the tight scripting in that game, that doesn't really make you want to go play Black Ops.
Or like other glitches, like Sonic 06. Oh, you're falling through the ground. It's like no, that's a bad glitch. It's detrimental to my fun. I think that the Oblivion glitches, I think that they're funny.
Yeah, I mean, you look at glitches like this, and it's it's charming. It's funny. It makes you want to play the game, and it's part of It would be perfect if this game. It would be great if this game was perfect and didn't have any bugs, but it does, and I forgive it for that.
Right. Yeah, and that's pretty much my perspective. My biggest thing with the bugs is more that a lot of this stuff is exactly the same stuff that people have been sort of complaining about for a decade, when it comes to Bethesda's games. I mean, a lot of these are the same exact problems that were in Fallout 3 and in Oblivion and Morrowind. And so it gets a little bit harder, especially in a year when you have a game that has perfect combat like Dark Souls, or in a game that's just so tight in most ways like The Witcher 2 and things like that. You do have these kind of standards that you hold it up against, but it's in some ways, though, they don't necessarily really apply equally because none of them have the ambition or the size or the scope of
well, I mean,
they have
Skyrim.
the ambition.
They have different kind of ambition.
So it's kind of interesting drawing these distinction between bugs. It's like because I know McShay, you were grabbing a lot of flack this week over kind of the glitchy kind of controls that Zelda has.
Yes.
And it seems like if a glitch is impairing your ability, the gameplay, like making it frustrating to play, then that's a no-go. But if a glitch is just kind of a visual quirk, then that's fine.
Like the glitch in Zelda is that the aiming needs to be recentered frequently, and it tells you this very loud and clear in the item menu to remind you, like, hey, if it's screwed up, don't forget to just do this. Like that affects the gameplay. That's how I play the game. But if it's popping or something, I don't care about other stuff.
And that's a thing where there's like no excuse. We've been playing games that have absolutely functional controls with no problems for a long, long time now. So if a game doesn't control right, that's stupid.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for that. But if you have a 300-hour RPG where a wolf's walking up a wall, or
sounds like I want to play that,
or I get stuck in the environment and have to reload a save game. You know what? I'm kind of willing to pay that price because what I get out of it is ultimately absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
So Magrino was wrong.
No, I was. Yeah, I mean.
Like you're so surprised.
I think we won
fair.
that battle.
I don't know if I'm completely convinced that games are short enough for me, and I don't think I'm actually going to ever win that battle.
I agree that I think they're too long.
I think they're too long.
I mean, if Assassin's Creed Rev was 10 hours, I'd probably play it. I'm not going to play a 30-hour Assassin's Creed game until 3 comes out.
I would be infinitely more entertained by a 10-hour I can grasp a 10-hour game. A 100-hour game. I'm playing Skyrim right now and I enjoy it for all the reasons that you guys have mentioned. But something about a 25-hour game that's very like Assassin's Creed is just very off-putting to me. I don't know why.
I totally understand.
But there are plenty of
you
games
are not
out there
wrong.
with the
You're just
length
different
and quality that you want,
but a little wrong.
A little
wrong.
A little tiny bit wrong.
You're
but
different with a light dash of wrong, just sprinkled in.
Right. It's
garnish.
like
a garnish of incorrectness.
Didn't we say no to the recipe analogies? I thought that was a thing we didn't do.
You might have
Oh,
said that,
God.
but I certainly did.
Yeah, Sean says yes to it.
I say yes.
Did you see the?
I set the oven at 450 degrees for those analogies.
Well, don't make any cookies.
I don't know what that means. You burn them up, burn them on the outside, leave them frozen on the inside.
You're gonna ruin your chocolate chip cookies at 450 degrees.
This is more of like a roast.
A roast.
Yeah.
Roast,
not a
cookie.
stew.
A roasted analogy.
Roasted. I think we're done with that analogy.
Sprinkled with Old Bay.
So I
I don't want to roast with Old Bay.
don't even know what Old Bay is.
Don't
Anyway,
worry about it.
I'm not worried about
You're not from Maryland, clearly.
No, I'm not. If you're from Maryland, go ahead and write in. I have no idea what that is, and explain it to me in the best words you know
It's
how.
a seafood seasoning.
We're gonna. That's pretty boring. I don't. I know. If you're from Maryland and you know what Old Bay is, give me a new interpretation of Old Bay.
Yeah, I want that on next week's podcast.
Yeah.
Your favorite thing to put Old Bay on that's not seafood.
Right.
For example, I think it's great on macaroni and cheese.
Possibly tacos.
Probably not roast, because that just sounds gross.
Anyway, so that's because we're kind of limited for time today. We're gonna wrap up the games discussion there, but look forward to Zelda on Monday and Saints Row and et cetera on Tuesday. Of next
Also,
day.
can I just give a plug for Rayman Origins?
Game is rad.
That game
rad.
is really
Game is
rad.
rad.
I love that game. I think it's wonderful. If you enjoy any sort of platformers or fun
Right.
in general,
No,
definitely get Rayman Origins.
I loathe platformers, but I played a few minutes of Rayman Origins and I had a really good time with it.
Like I said, everybody loves Rayman.
Everybody. Please don't ever do that again. We're going to move to news. 3DS sales on track to best DS's first year in US. Can you believe Nintendo announced that? That seems just like a flagrant lie to me.
What if it's true?
It could be true. I mean, this is their explanation for this.
Okay, just to clarify, is this the first 12 months or the first calendar year? Because the original DS came out in like November.
Right. It's for the first 12 months
Okay.
of availability.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. So over last week, as part of the MPD reports, Nintendo announced that the 3DS was on track to be selling more in its first 12 months, than the Nintendo DS, which now has sold more than 100 million units worldwide. I can't exactly place it. But the 3DS sold 250 units in the US during October. By comparison, the original DS sold 2.37 million units during its first 12 months on the market. I forgot a stat in there. 1.65 million units thus far in the US, and compared to the DS, which hit 2.37 million in its first 12 months. This after a 32% price cut. I don't know if you can actually, just throw out, oh man, 3DS is doing so well. Breakout success. Even if its sales are on target, I feel like that's not, I don't know, something about just seems disingenuous to me to compare, a game from, or a system from, what, that came out in 2004?
Yeah.
Is that right?
2004, Yeah.
To something that's in, it should be much, much higher, is what I'm saying. Is that
Oh, because the industry is getting bigger,
Because the industry
and
is
also
getting
the DS was a
bigger
huge risk at the time because people thought it was. I mean, it
Unestablished.
wasn't Game Boy. It didn't have it didn't have the name brand. It
Right.
didn't have games until like March, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, it just felt like a really weird announcement to me, even though Nintendo seemed to be quite proud of it.
It's spin.
It is spin.
Yeah.
But I guess it is somewhat surprising too, just because I thought the 3DS was completely, dead on arrival, but apparently not.
I mean, the one sort of small trace of a silver lining there is that it does sort of reveal this parallel between the 3DS and the DS in terms of just having a slow start, and there is a possibility to see like maybe the sales charts turn into a sudden hockey stick and take off, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
I don't.
with
Yeah,
3DS.
I mean, I have no indication. We're into this point where we have Super Mario 3D Land, which also came out this week. I think we gave it an 8.
Yes.
Does that sound about right?
Yes.
So that's fine. I don't even know if
It's great. Max
sounds
loved
really
it, and
great.
Caro concurs.
Yeah, Caro thinks
Yeah.
it's great too.
Yeah.
when was the last time we gave a Mario game an 8?
The last one before the Galaxy one. We gave an 8.5 to that atrocious
New Super
Wii
Mario
game.
Brothers Wii.
Atrocious is a little strong, but
Yeah.
disappointing.
So that one's atrocious, but this one is great.
Well, this one actually seems like it would be better than that Wii game.
Tom disagrees with that score.
Yeah.
I'll just say that.
It's a little tough with four
I
people.
kind of disagree with it too. Actually, I had said some of the least fun I've ever had with a Mario game ever playing 4-player New Super Mario Brothers. The only co-op game I ever remember playing was made worse the more people you add to it.
Yeah.
Ugh,
Yeah, but
Well, it depends if you're playing with Chris Waters or not.
that's true.
That
That's
guy makes
awkward.
every game unfun.
Yeah. Should you share what you were doing with Halo Anniversary Edition?
Yeah.
while Chris was
Halo
playing
Anniversary
today?
also came out today. 10-year anniversary for that game, and It has Kinect voice controls.
It does, which is a great means of griefing anybody who's playing the game. For example, Chris was playing it earlier, and I discovered that if you shout grenade, his character will throw a grenade.
A good 2 seconds after you say it.
There is a delay there. And you can also, if it's on a 3D supported television, you can say activate 3D. Deactivate 3D.
And it just hangs for like 3 seconds
it does.
while
It
it's like cycling.
It works especially well if Chris Waters has just put on his 3D glasses and then you shout deactivate 3D and you get him caught in this vicious cycle.
Can't you also do reload?
You can do reload.
Because that would really screw you up in the middle of a fight.
And you can do classic view, which is, I personally would never play it like that. However, it's a great way to grief anybody who is playing.
There you go. Griefing tips from Sean.
For example, Chris Waters.
Right. But I don't. That game, we have no idea what we're gonna give it yet, but it was probably fun. It's Halo.
I'm sure it's a positive.
It seemed very positive.
I played split screen with Chris yesterday, and I was having a blast. I can't. I'm actually kind of flabbergasted at how good the updated visuals look in that game. This isn't just like a coat of paint.
They used the Halo Reach engine, right?
Yep.
So
yeah, it looks really good.
Oh
yeah, I want to play it now. Though it's weird. There's only 6 of the 13 maps because I liked all 13 maps, especially the stupid teleporting one. That was my favorite.
I can't. That one always comes up. You're like, oh god, that's everybody.
And I never even know what it's called.
Everybody's like, I like Blood Gulch, and Tom's like, I like the one with all the teleports.
I like the stupid teleporting one. If you want some stupid Halo maps, you should check out the ones that I made in Halo 4.
No.
I made some stupid...
In what game?
Halo,
Captain Future over there?
Halo Reach Forge.
yeah.
I think said Halo Forge? I think it said 4.
No, Forge.
Okay.
Halo Forge. Hobo Carnival is a particularly terrible map. Sounds
great
it's an
already.
entire map. It's all pyramid shaped, and there's just man cannons that shoot you up into the middle. So it's this big convergence point of death, and it's a Hobo Carnival.
Do people ever actually play on these maps?
I had people play on it one time for a GameSpot community game night, and it was universally reviled.
Yeah.
Even Justin Calvert said it was bad.
And he knows what he's talking about.
And he loves the stupid teleport map from Halo CE.
Well, he's also the maker of that awful Little Big Planet level that we played from the original Little Big Planet. That was oh my god, it was so bad.
The one time I played Forge with Justin and Chris, like Justin was chasing me in a flying vehicle while I was in a Warthog, and Chris was transforming the land in front of us. This is incredible.
Wow.
Okay, so either way, you should play Halo Reach and Halo CE 3D HD or
all
whatever.
that other stuff. I don't even know what we were talking about anymore.
Those Halo games are pretty good.
MPD came out and Nintendo did well, and a couple other games did well.
Dark Souls.
Hey, you want to talk about Dark Souls? That was the 6th most popular game at U.S. retail in October.
That's amazing to me.
It outsold Gears 3,
Now,
right?
Gears did come out in September, and this was October, but still, I mean, Dark Souls.
Good for Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is 2 platforms versus 1 as well, but it's great. I'm just really excited.
Yeah.
And some guy messaged me on Twitter today saying, you like how overrated I rated Dark Souls, like how I overrated Dark Souls and how it was and how I'm the only person that likes it.
Whoa. He was incorrect in his assessment.
He is incorrect in that I am the only person that likes Dark Souls.
Yeah. And then I'll just Battlefield 3 was the top selling game at U.S. retail. It's important to note that it's U.S. retail because EA announced that Battlefield 3 had sold 5 million units in its first 24 or first week. But MPD only has that game at 2 million units. So there's 3 million units additional. I think it's just important when you look at some of the other stuff that came out. Arkham City sold 1.5 million. NBA 2K12 did well. Rage, did you say it was 350K? Is that right?
You
saw it on NeoGAF. You saw it on
NeoGAF. 550K.
550K.
Yeah.
Okay. Just
Game Informer.
Game Informer.
Game Informers who said that.
Okay. There are people out there who said it. I don't know.
Yes.
All right.
MPD doesn't actually give out these numbers. So if they have the numbers, they probably stole them.
Yeah.
Madden, NFL 12, Forza Motorsport, Gears, and FIFA Soccer 12. So that was MPD. The industry was up 1%.
There you go.
Right.
Not bad.
Great.
Not bad.
Not bad.
How interesting, though, that Gears was not at number 1, like when you'd expect Call of Duty to just be like number 1 for several months.
That's my prediction for November's MPDs. Prove me wrong,
Yeah.
America. Prove me wrong.
Oh, that's so funny when people complain about you being a Call of Duty fanboy in the Zelda
I
comments.
totally got that.
There are people that don't know what they're talking
Yeah,
about.
I know.
So we're gonna move on to 10 years ago this week in reviews because I like the segment. And
Halo
we're,
CE.
we're totally almost out of time.
9.7.
5.7.
Oh.
5.7. The standard for vehicular combat has been set extremely high
Blood
by Twisted
Wake.
Metal Black. No. And this latest generation of multiplayer games has become so thoroughly enjoyable that this game simply fails to measure up. The lack of a dedicated single-player game, the bland weapon selection, and the repetitive nature of the action undermine the strength of this game's attractive graphics.
Cell damage.
Cell damage. Very good.
Boosh.
Yep.
Boosh.
Boosh? Who made cell damage?
That's what I wanted to point out.
Cell factor.
Electronic
Cell-
Arts
I don't know.
made cell damage.
Did they make
There
it?
was
They actually
Splinter Cell damage?
Pseudo Interactive made it. The people who made Full Auto. I just thought it was interesting that 10 years ago this week, EA was still releasing games that weren't surefire 8.0s during the holiday quarter. Oh, how things have changed.
I'm going to say something inappropriate.
Okay.
But I have to because I have to get it out. When you said full auto, my first thought was, Tom, you're mispronouncing fellatio.
Oh, that was not where I was going with
You
that.
did not have to get it out.
EA
Sorry, I just-
is no longer filleting anymore.
Where's that sound device? I need to do the wah
You
wah
threw it
wah
across the room.
Okay.
wah 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 wah.
One other game that came out, obviously 9.7 for Halo, the original Combat Evolved. That was out this week. Launch game. Xbox.
Wait, what do we give Halo?
9.7.
That's a good score.
Not only is this easily the best of the Xbox launch games, but it's
That's an
easily one
understatement.
of the best shooters ever on any platform. That was what we said.
It's true. I love saying it's the best launch game. It's like, well,
Duh.
Better than.
well, Tony Hawk 3 probably launched with this system, so it might not be as good as Tony Hawk 3.
But that game was unplayable on an original Xbox controller.
Oh, the Duke.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
How I
it
love
had
the
like
Duke.
the mushy face buttons, so you could never like.
And like the gray and white with the white, black, and white buttons were like
My
way
buttons was,
like
way up there,
and it
like
was the
doing
size
nothing.
of Oklahoma, so it was like, hello,
Problematic.
Oklahoma, I'm-
Weird buttons everywhere. 7.3. This game
Okay.
has some real strengths, but hand-holding micromanagement, an awkward interface, bugs, and other problems and weaknesses often sap the fun out of the game just when it starts to get entertaining. This game's missions draw you in 1 minute, putting you on the edge of your seat, only to draw you out of the next minute with the game's problems. Compared with similar games, this game unfortunately doesn't fare as well as it might have. Rogue Spear, SWAT 3, and Operation Flashpoint usually offer more immersive situations, more interesting and better balanced missions, better storytelling, better teammate AI, or smoother interface.
Ghost Recon.
Ghost Recon.
wow.
One thing about Ghost Recon that can't really be said of Rogue Spear, SWAT 3, and Operation Flashpoint, it's still around and thriving. I thought that was interesting.
Operation Flashpoint is still around and thriving.
It's not Ghost Recon.
That's probably fair.
When was the last Ghost Recon game that came out?
Advanced Warfighter 2.
It was that Wii game.
It was the rail shooter.
Yes.
Thriving.
No. It
Oh,
was
there
the
was the
3DS.
3DS game.
The 3DS.
Are you talking about the XCOM
right.
thing?
Yeah.
But that's
Oh, they
only
have
because-
Future
yeah.
Soldier with
Well, it's
Kinect
only because
support.
Future
and they've got
Soldier
the,
has been
the
delayed
online,
forever.
the free-to-play online one.
Advanced
Yeah,
Warfighter
this is-
was truly interesting, though.
It seems like it's more thriving because they won't let it die.
They stuck with it, which is another way of
I
saying
guess
they
it's
won't
like,
let
is
it die.
Medal of Honor thriving because EA
What's a
hasn't
word
killed it
that
yet?
means thriving against its own will? Because maybe that.
Not letting it die. I'm not sure. It could probably be said more concisely. Anyway, yeah, Ghost Recon didn't have the best start, but it's still around, and it's certainly bigger than any of the other games that we name checked there.
It's because Tom Clancy wrote it. He wrote the script for all those games
Yeah,
by himself.
Is he still alive?
He's a little bit alive.
We
He's
reanimated?
being kept alive against his own will.
Cryogenics,
He's
right.
thriving
Nice.
against his own will.
Also, it had a good start. We have to point out that 7 is a good.
7's a good start.
It's a good start.
Also that week, Greg Kasavin wrote a 5-page review for Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty. That game got like a 9 point awesome. I don't remember what.
so deserved. I really like MGS2.
We've got 3 minutes
Lolly,
left
lolly, low.
before CNET kicks us out. So
Trivia.
I'm gonna
Trivia.
jump
Trivia.
I'm going to jump to trivia. Last week I felt really bad for kind of dicking over Stumpia. So I'm going to let him have the first crack at this week's trivia because he wrote in with something new. Here we go. Stumpia riddles. Generic orcs, unnecessary cleavage galore. Regardless, some gamers were left wanting more. Most of the others weren't so nice. To this, the game that is not won twice.
I don't know.
What?
Was it World of Warcraft?
It was a riddle. Should I read it again? Generic orcs.
Cell damage?
No. Generic orcs, unnecessary cleavage galore. Regardless, some gamers were left wanting more. Most of the others weren't so nice. To this game, the game that is not won twice.
Cell damage?
Stop that.
Cell damage?
Not one twice.
Two Worlds 2.
Yay!
Yes, you got it, sir. I am sorry, Stumpia. I tried, buddy. Wow. Nice
Wow.
work. Nice
That's a
work.
really great
All right.
riddle now that I
So
know
Sorry
what it
about
means.
that.
That's two Worlds mentions on this podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
I have a
Good for you,
second.
Two Worlds.
I have a second trivia. Kurt quizzes. The original game Halo had two different code names during development. The first one was changed to the more benign Blam because the project lead, quote, could not bring himself to tell his mother he was working on a game called This. What was the original code name for Halo Combat Evolved?
Oh, it's something.
Something you're afraid to tell your mother?
Yeah, I know. I've heard it before.
Code name bitch.
Slap my bitch up.
No, it's a good song,
Yeah.
but that's not the answer. The answer is Monkey Nuts.
Monkey nuts.
Monkey Nuts is the answer. Original
I did not know that.
code name
Yeah.
for Halo Combat Evolved. So, Kurt, I will send you any game that we talk about that came out this Skyrim. You can have a copy of Skyrim or
Get a
Assassin's Creed, Rayman.
Assassin's Creed, Rayman,
Zelda.
or whatever. Just write in and tell me what you want.
Zel-
Not Zelda.
Zelda doesn't count because that's next week.
That's next week.
Okay.
Get Rayman or Scrim. Both are good games.
Scrim.
Scrim was last
Assassin's
week.
Creed is quite good. Is great. too.
If you know, so if you want a free game, write in. Oh, we'll also send you some useless junk. We'll sign it. It'll be great.
Yeah.
But if you think you know some obscure gaming trivia, NES Era Beyond, or Gaming Riddle, write in, stump our panel, and you can get some stuff. I'll leave it at that. iTunes is a go. If you, one thing about that though, if you were having problems with the subscription, I recommend unsubscribing and resubscribing. And in that case, you will get the audio only available. Video is not yet there. Tech is currently futzing around with our video player and video page. And as soon as that's done, then they tell me that the video will be able to go up onto iTunes. To the 4 people out there who use Zune Marketplace, like Kevin Van Ord,
I use the zone.
Lark tells me, he basically said, what there is the Zune? So I don't know what's going on with that.
Lark had a stroke, by the way.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
He's a shell of himself.
I'm the only person on Earth. that has
He's
a-
been so funny since he had that stroke.
Yeah.
New Lark is the best.
New drooling Lark is the best. The other week he was looking for his crown. I don't even know what was going on.
He kept calling you Jimmy. It was a little creepy.
But he does tell me that New Lark is currently looking into the Zune. So that may or may not happen sometime in the future. Like the
Probably
Hotspot,
not.
want more podcasts, GameSpot UK podcast, or the Ozspot is available for you. Just come back once you listen, because they're bad. I'm just saying. Randolph is a crazy man.
They're not bad. They're just different. They have funny
it's-
voices.
They do have stupid accents. All right, that does it for this.
Whoa,
Not-
that's quite the
Oh.
leap.
Okay,
Oh, what?
okay.
I love Guy Cocker.
God, call, call.
You just like saying Guy Cocker.
Guy Cocker, lol. Love you, guy.
Friend of the show, Guy Cocker.
Friend of the show. Great guy.
Anyway, that does it for this week. We got to get out of the studio. Kevin Van Ord.
Hey.
Hey, Thomas McShay.
Goodbye.
Sean McInnes. There we go. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Check us out next week. That does it for us. Hotspot out!
The Hotspot is recorded in front of a live studio audience.